Hello, Sorrento. Hi there, everyone. My name is Hannah, and I am Paulette's editor from Sasquatch. And I just wanted to welcome you all here tonight to celebrate the launch of her book, Welcome to the Writer's Life. Woo! So Paulette is one of the hardest working writers I know. She is a multi-talented writer, an essayist, a journalist, published in top-tier media around the world. And she is the best possible writer I ever could have imagined for this book to welcome beginning writers to experienced writers to the life of a writer. Her voice is incredibly welcoming, hilarious, and warm. And I think that writers from the beginning stages to seasoned writers will find amazing tips for developing a writer's life in her book. So I'm incredibly proud to have published it. And I just wanted to say cheers to Paulette and to Welcome to the Writer's Life.
Thank you so much, Hannah. You guys are awesome. A lot of people have talked about, how you don't get any support from your publishers anymore, and I have just been blown away by Sasquatch. They've been awesome, and it's been a really great experience, and it's such a really personal compliment that you say I'm a hardworking writer, because I'm a recovering lazy person. And so that it really was the realization that it's just a lot of hard work. I was like, oh, all right, well, I'll do that now, I guess. When I was 10, I told my best friends at the bus stop that I wanted to be a writer when I grew up, and one of them said, do you have any idea how hard that is? So she's here tonight, and so I just want to take this opportunity, just want to say in front of all these people, thanks for the warning. I wanted to remind you that if your cell phone goes off, everyone will turn and look at you. Feel free to get up and get a drink if you need to. It's really nice seating. If you can't see me now, you won't be able to see the readers. And Christine Texera from Hugo House is going to be introducing the readers. We have two of my favorite people tonight. Anastasia couldn't make it. She's on Would-Be teaching. So come on up, Christine. Thank you so much. And Christine, so my real therapist is here tonight. Thank you. Things are going better. Christine is my fake therapist at Hugo House. I just go in her office like every day. I'm like, hey, you got 5? I'm like, what's up? And then I just like tell her my a episode of my life story. And I'm like, so yeah, what's going on with you? She's like, nothing. I'm like, okay. I'm going to go back to my office now. So thanks so much, Christine, for all you guys do at Hugo House. It's amazing.
Hi. I'm so excited to be a part of this celebration, and it's been such a joy to watch Paulette work on not only the Writer's Welcome Kit, but then this book, Welcome to the Writer's Life, at Hugo House. It's meant a lot. Having a friend like Paulette is very special. She cares about people, is very passionate about writing, and she reminds me about the reasons I want to be a writer and why I work with writers, which is really helpful. And she has the ability to see that I actually do really like talking to people and engaging with people, even though I've never really been successful in like giving off that vibe, but she's kind of like seen it and kind of helped me with that, which is great. So I appreciate that she's willing to put in that work, which makes her really perfect to write this welcome book. So to start tonight, the sort of literary fun side, we get to hear from Nicole Hardy and Ramon Isao, who are great writers and great people, and I will tell you a little bit about Ramon. Ramon is a recipient of the Tim McGinnis Award for Fiction, as well as fellowships from Artist Trust and Jack Straw Cultural Center. His stories have appeared in the Iowa Review, Ninth Letter, City Arts Magazine, and many, many more. And his film credits include Dead Body, Grow Up, and Zombies of Mass Destruction. He teaches at Hugo House and through Writers in the Schools. Welcome, Ramon.
Thank you. Oh, do I do the two-handed thing? Let's see. All right, I'll try. I've given up already. So there's my tenacity for you. Thank you guys so much for coming. Thank you, Paulette, for asking me to do this. It's an honor to be... Oh, dude.
Where do you need it?
Come on, like right there.
Thanks again.
Come on. There?
Like here? Is that good? Thank you. Yeah. Just hold for technical difficulties for a second, guys. All right. So Paulette asked me to write about the moment I decided to be a writer. And unfortunately, there are many such moments in my life because I constantly doubt. And so then I have to realize it again, right? And so I just wrote several different scenes where it was clear to me. But for the most part, I decided last week and the week before that. I decide every week, right? Every time I sit down to work on something, if you look at my search history, you will undoubtedly see how old is too old to get into real estate. So, happens all the time. All right, so let's see, here we go. So here are 4 times when it seemed clear. 1. At something like 6 or 7 years old, I broke the couch. I was jumping up and down on it in one of those childhood spasms of joy I take pills to recapture as an adult. But this time was special. My father had explained something that would end up shaping my life. Those 2 or 3 words under the title of the book, that's the name of the person who wrote it. That was the name of the writer. I don't know what I thought before, I don't remember. When you're a child, you start out blank. As a parent, I've been surprised at how many things in the world we scarcely notice that require long, thought-out explanations for children. So I don't know how I avoided knowledge of a book's author for so long. Perhaps I didn't want to stop believing that books just materialized. A world in your hand, 5 senses tweaked through the eyes of some fake stranger. So I jumped on the couch and snapped some spinal center of it. My father came running, and his face clouded into the expression of a man about to scold, mostly because he knew he'd get it from my mother when she got home. She'd put a few bucks into this couch. From that point on, anyone sitting on the left or right would gradually, imperceptibly slide toward the center cushion. Dad, I said, I'm going to be a writer. Write about a house with a couch, he said. 2. A little while after that, I got a thesaurus. During recess once, I left it outside. That's right, I would bring my thesaurus outside for recess. That's the kind of kid I was. Others brought a ball, a jump rope, some recognizable implement of play. I brought a thesaurus. It was a Roget's, which I still don't know if I'm pronouncing correctly, and I wreaked havoc with that thing. I'd look up words no normal person would use and slip them into my comments to teachers, only to watch them fumble, pretending to understand. See, my parents were good at everything collectively. Mom with all the left brain stuff, Dad with the right. But English was their second language, and so here was my private superpower. So I left the thesaurus, my Captain America shield, in the rain until a kid named Josh McDonald found my power, assumed it for his own. There was a bitter dispute over ownership. But in the case of finders keepers versus my name is written right there, asshole, I won. Yeah. Because my mother intervened. Yes, she'd bought it. Yes, that faded scrawl is her son's name. No, he would not prefer a football. I got the book back. I still have it in a box somewhere. I think it's probably pretty moldy by now, and I should probably throw it away. 3. So real quick, Roald Dahl ends up being a pretty rabid anti-Semite by the end of this section, but I smeared his books all over my face before I knew this as a kid. My favorite was The Witches. Do you know how it ends? Anybody know how it ends? No? All right, this is good stuff. Here we go. The book centers around a little boy's attempts to destroy a coven of child-eating witches. Along the way, the boy is turned into a mouse, and at the book's end, he skirts expectations by not changing back into a boy. At first, he's despondent. Then his grandmother tells him, hey, cheer up. See, because you are a mouse, your life expectancy has drastically shrunk. So now we'll die at roughly the same time. It was a great lesson in how to fashion a happy ending out of misery. But when the movie came out, the mouse becomes a boy in the end. The grandmother's mortality is left on the shelf. This infuriated me as a kid. As everyone else cheered in the darkened theater, I wanted to scream out, but that woman's going to die, man. She's going to die. He'll go into foster care. No one else was impressed. Perhaps they couldn't hear me. 4. My poor mother tried everything to keep me from being a writer. As an immigrant, Mom wanted me to be more emblematic of American success. Still, when I was 7, she let me attend the Young Writers Workshop. Honestly, said my teacher on that first day, whose parents are making them come here? Every student raised a hand except for me. But I kept writing, even as Mom fought to enliven some latent interest in math or science. The problem was I needed writing. Calculus was expendable. One motive for teaching English in Japan after college was to placate her. She was pleased that I discovered the motherland and develop a trade, but I was there to travel, write constantly, and get away from then-President George W. Bush, who I loathed. He was what we used to call a bad president, for those of you who are too young to. Next came the MFA program in New York. I excelled and won some awards, but New York charged too much for the privilege, so I fled, dejected, back to Seattle, just before it too would jack up the price. My mother picked me up from the airport and said she'd read a story I published. It was good, she confessed, and honest, and very, very sad. It remains my highest praise, even though she probably didn't mean it that way. After all, I still owe her a couch. Thank you guys so much. Congrats, Paulette.
All right. Nicole Hardy. Nicole Hardy's memoir, Confessions of a Latter-day Virgin, was a finalist for a 2014 Washington State Book Award. Her other books include the poetry collections This Blonde and Mudflap Girl's XX Guide to Facial Profiling, a chapbook of sonnets inspired by pop culture. Her work has appeared in literary journals and newspapers, including the New York Times, and her essay, Single Female Mormon Alone, was noted in the Best American Essays 2012 and featured on the Modern Love podcast. She earned her MFA at the Bennington College Writing Seminars. Welcome, Nicole.
First things first. I never know how these work. Oh, I did it. Wait, no, I didn't. I ruined it. Hold on. Wait, it's happening. It's totally happening. It's totally happening. I did it. Wait.
Is that high enough?
I think so. Can you hear me? Is that cool? I feel like it's good. Hi, everyone. So I grew up in a super religious community that was not super interested in people taking risks. So when I told my family that I wanted to be a writer, they said, you should be a teacher, because that's a great thing for wives and mothers to do. Meanwhile, I never found much interest in doing either of those things. But I did decide at one point that I still wanted to be a writer. This section in my memoir comes when I've been teaching high school for several years, and I'm having some angst about it. I awake with a start to a noise at the door. I sit up, frightened, realizing I've been asleep in a bed in what I thought was my house, but the real owners are at the door. rattling their keys, opening the lock. They have arrived without warning. They're coming inside, and I can't be discovered. I have only seconds to erase all evidence of myself. I rush frantically, shoving clothes and books inside the closet, pushing papers and books under the bed. I sweep my arm across the dresser, dumping jewelry and photographs haphazardly into drawers. I usually wake in the middle of this nightmare sleepwalk, disoriented, chagrined to find myself doing it again. Sometimes it's not until morning that I see the evidence. Once I woke to find I'd taken down all the pictures in my bedroom and set them neatly against the walls facing inward to reveal nothing but blank brown paper, hooks, and wire. I've always assumed it was a stress dream prompted by grad school or work or both, until last night, halfway through a reading by the poet Jane Hirshfield. She looked up from her book of poems to address the small crowd gathered in the event space at Elliott Bay Book Company. You know the dream everyone has, she said, her long graying hair backlit by the lamp at the side of the stage, lending her the air of a clairvoyant. When you're in your house and one room's lead to another room, which leads to another, all of which are unfinished. I've never had the dream she's describing, so I waited to hear where the story would take her, how it would inform the poem she would read next. She went on with a wave of her hand. Obviously, the house represents soul and self. You all know that. She said it in a throwaway tone, an apologetic aside. Jungian psychology. All I could hear after that was my heartbeat in my ears. All I could feel was the chill running through me, the hair standing up on my arms. How long have I been having the dream now? A year? 2 years? More? How long have my brain and body been trying to tell me, I don't live in my house? And then, fast forward, I'm at some kind of like teacher enrichment curriculum thing where we're all trying to learn about like the Socratic seminar. There's like 10 of us in a room. Some guy has come in to teach us. He's very like silver foxy. He hands us out a copy of Salvador, Late or Early by Sandra Cisneros, and we're all supposed to like read in a circle. And here's what happens there. I looked down at the photocopy of Salvador, Late or Early by Sandra Cisneros. Salvador, with eyes the color of caterpillar, I begin. Salvador of the crooked hair and crooked teeth, Salvador, whose name the teacher cannot remember, is a boy who is no one's friend, runs along somewhere in that vague direction where homes are the color of bad weather. My voice melts into the too long sentence, savoring the rhythms that conjure the boy so clearly I can almost feel him in the room. That 40-pound body of a boy with its geography of scars, its history of hurts, limbs stuffed with feathers and rags, and what part of the eye is in what part of the heart, in the cage of the chest where something throbs with both fists and knows only what Salvador knows. The sentence inspires a sudden rush of tears, a collapse of my lungs under a merciless hand squeezing. The sentence is an echo inside me, a call to the throbbing fists of my own heart, and the answer comes without warning. Everything I've pushed down, locked away, begged to stay silent, rushes through to the surface of my consciousness. My throat is a pulse, contracted and burning with the effort to remain silent. My vision is a frightened blur, and I put my forehead in my hands, let my hair fall forward to hide the visceral, disproportionate reaction. In front of me is the story, certain words raised and rippled inside perfect circular teardrops. These words, blurred and magnified, will serve as evidence, watermarks to remind me in case I try to forget. Salvador disappearing, like a memory of kites, like me disappearing, allowing myself to disappear, living according to the they say and the you should, allowing the should and the they to determine my choices, dictate my life. What the fuck am I doing living in Kent, wearing sweater sets and sensible shoes, driving a fucking Corolla? Whose life am I living? This is the moment, I think, still hiding behind my hair, still looking at the tear-stained photocopy on my desk, remembering an interview Toni Morrison gave. She talked about struggling as a single mother, working as an editor at a publishing house, working late one night, unsure of what to do next. She wrote down the only two things that mattered: mother my children, write books. After that, she said, everything was clear. Not easier, but clear. I write the numbers 1 and 2 in the margin of Salvador, late or early. Write books. I print in capitals by the number 1. See the world is number 2. But I add a third. Decide. 7 months later, when I drop my MFA application into a blue metal mailbox on the side of the road, I know I may not get in. I probably won't, given the odds. I also know it doesn't matter. I've taken the first of however many steps will be required to set myself on the path to writing. I've sent in that manila envelope the biggest, most beautiful fuck you to the they say and the you should, to every naysaying voice, including my own, telling me writing isn't wise, isn't practical, isn't possible or responsible for a girl like me.
All right. Are you ready to hear a little bit about Paulette? Okay. I'm going to share some things you probably know about her and a lot of things you might not. Paulette's writing has been published in the New York Times, Elle, Vice, Slate, Cosmopolitan, and Marie Claire. She was a Hugo House Fellow in 2013, and she was honored with a 2016 Blog Her Voice of the Year award for her essay Fuck Off Fund, which is amazing, and has been anthologized in freshman year of life from Flatiron Books. Her writing has been rejected from some of the nation's finest publications. McSweeney's, The Sun, Hobart, Camera Obscura, Mason's Road, Brevity, Pank, Monkey Bicycle, The Monarch Review, Post Road, Bitch, Zizova, Plowshares, Witness, A Public Space, The Cincinnati Review, The Rumpus, Phoebe, The Kenyon Review, Pleiades, Ninth Letter, Blackbird, Boston Review, Baltimore Review, Kyoto Journal, Puerto del Sol, Third Coast, and Lenny are just a few of the places where you may have noticed her work was not there. Of her writing, Tin House says, "Unfortunately, we must pass it this time." Her rigorous study at the University of Florida, Princeton Review's #1 party school in the nation, 2008, included courses on drug and alcohol abuse, a real class, geology, commonly called rocks for jocks, and racquetball, twice. She did not receive her MFA from Iowa, Columbia, or from Syracuse, even though writer man god George Saunders teaches there, and he's so nice, and two of her friends have gotten into 5 student cohorts. She's totally okay with it. She was not the winner of the ASME internship in New York. She did not get the editorial assistant job at Coastal Living. She did not get the internship at This American Life, although later she paid to meet Ira Glass like a creep. She has embarrassed herself in front of Roxane Gay, Nancy Pearl, and Malcolm Gladwell in separate incidences. Her influences do not include David Foster Wallace, Gabriel Garcia Marquez, or Geoffrey Chaucer. And she has a library full of writing books, stuffed with rips of paper marking pages with assignments she will go back and do. She's a 4-time submitter to the Jack Straw Fellowship. Me too. She thought the Pulitzer Prize was the Pulitzer Prize until she was like 17. And at age 28, she attended an 8-month writing residency in her mom's downstairs bedroom. And friends such as photographer Darren Dean have described her pieces thusly: "It got long, but then it ended." Here's to Paulette.
Hello there. On the day that changed me from someone who wanted to be a writer to someone working to be a writer, I was a 26-year-old Peace Corps volunteer in the capital of Paraguay on a swamp-hot bus packed mostly with office workers on their way home. The bus squealed to a stop, and the driver opened the door. Since so many of the stories, both hilarious and traumatizing, that I told my family and friends back home started with someone getting on the bus, I developed a reflex to watch that door, waiting for whoever or whatever was next. A young woman, maybe 20 years old, hopped on and stood at the front, smiling. She greeted us hello in Guarani, not with the usual booming voice of the infomercial-ready salesman holding racks of nail clippers, DVDs, and/or empanadas, and not with the silent eyes of the children who walked the aisle barefoot, holding out their hands or placing candies with notes in our laps explaining why their families needed our change, but instead with a voice that the grind of the engine nearly swallowed. "I'm going to give you something," she said, and we passengers, ignoring her, continued to ignore her. "If you like it, you can give me something for it, and if not, I'll take it back." She handed out what she had on blue speckled stock paper, a kind I hadn't seen since I left my country a year before. On it, she'd printed a poem, her poem. She was a real live writer. When she had collected her money, she turned to get off the bus, but then faced us again, waving and smiling, with a red clown nose she'd popped on. Then she bopped out into the streets, past kids holding packs of gum up to open car windows, past dogs scrounging in trash cans, into the heat and the red dust. "You wuss," I said to myself as I watched her bounce away, a dirty window between us. Just be a writer already. Seeing that poet taught me that being a writer is not about being special. It's not about being published. It's not about being famous. Writers are writing everywhere, at every scale. That marked the day I really began the work. Up until then, I had been a reporter, but not a deep reader, not someone who wrote outside of my reporting day job unless it was to vent or to celebrate in my journal. I'd always wanted to be a writer in the artistic sense, someone who made art with words, but I was too scared to even admit it, and then I was too scared to put in the effort I knew it would require, with all that risk that it might not go anywhere. So I hid behind reporting the facts, as if my writing by itself would never be enough. That poet on the bus showed me that doing the thing was a kind of success in itself. She didn't ask permission to be a writer, and she didn't wait until someone told her she could be a writer. She just made her poems and brought them out into the world. She dared me to start the work. I don't think she could have done that to me without the year I'd had in Paraguay. I'd shown up knowing neither Spanish nor Guarani, so I'd had to spend a year studying and practicing and working harder than I ever had before to turn myself from a mute alien into the eyes of a human. Turn myself from a mute alien into a human in the eyes of the people around me. I'd spent my youth watching Saved by the Bell and The Simpsons and avoiding chores or getting off the couch for any other reason than to heat up another toaster strudel. Mom, you can attest. I'd spent high school and college sneaking by, doing the minimum I had to do to get good grades. When I'd heard that Hemingway rewrote the end of A Farewell to Arms 39 times, I knew I could never be a writer because I thought then that I would never work that hard. For much of my life, I had been, in short, a little shit. Learning 1.5 languages required more than me than I'd ever given in my life. Like with writing, there is no faking it, cheating, or shortcutting when learning a language. You either know why people are laughing at you or you don't. Your conversation shows your work, just as your writing does. In Paraguay, as I rediscovered the pleasures of conversation in words that used to be just flashcards, fell in bilingual love, and made my host mom cackle with a perfectly placed profanity in Guarani, the experience taught me the slow-cooked joy of working hard for a long time. After seeing that poet on the bus, I stocked up on writing books in the Peace Corps library and, as they told me to, tried to write every single day no matter what. When I messed up, I yelled at myself in the way I thought necessary. Then, after some moping, I began again. I put my butt in the chair, or hammock, as the case often was, and I put words on the page. I failed again. I began again. I failed again. Began. I began to begin, over and over and over and over. In this way, I became an expert at beginning to be a dedicated writer. Here are my credentials. I've begun 1,000 times. I started to write down ideas. I started dozens of first drafts. I set up accountability measures to make myself finish. If, and more often when, those failed me, I set up new ones. I shifted from wanting to be a writer to working to be a writer. And this book will show you how you can make that shift for yourself. You can't control whether you're a published writer, a professional writer, or a paid writer, but you can control whether you're a writing writer. That's what this book will make you. After Peace Corps, I landed at my mom's house, firmly back to everyday life. Now I had a 9 to 5 and waitressed on the weekends. No more hammock, long afternoons, or boredom that invited free writing. It was just working, cooking dinner, and making myself write for an hour each night, though it didn't feel like I was getting anywhere. Eventually, in 2011, I moved to Seattle. My new apartment, I found out, happened to be just 6 blocks from a writing center. What the hell is a writing center, I asked. Hugo House, named after the poet Richard Hugo, offered a schedule filled with readings and classes in an old funeral home by the park, basically Candyland for writers. I walked past the entrance a few times, intimidated by the official writers I saw milling around inside. I finally went to my first reading there. I had attended a few readings in college, big auditorium affairs with fancy names on a stage far away, but this felt more like a living room filled with friends, like a party I was crashing. I stood silent and alone among writers, talking and joking with each other. My social anxiety grabbed me by the collar and said, "We gotta get out of here." I pictured myself running right back down those stairs and home, but I made myself take a seat. Out came a writer wearing a skirt and a smirk, who was Nicole Hardy, backed by a jazz band, tapping a tambourine to the tune of poems that landed joke after joke. As my laughter joined the crowds, I knew I wanted to be a part of this, whatever this was. That night, I felt like an imposter in a place where I wanted to feel at home. As I just kept showing up, I learned that no one is going to come look for you to be a writer. You just have to join in. But I wanted to greet you at the door, let you know you're welcome here. With this book, I want to show you around. As writers later would for me, this book will sit down for a drink with you at the bar up the street after class and let you in on how the whole writing thing actually works. It gives you a peek behind the author's photos to introduce you to the real people working day jobs, facing doubts, but still scribbling in notebooks hidden in the car or typing away on laptops late at night to try to do this thing called being a writer. 7 years after Peace Corps, I flew back to Paraguay to visit my host family. The man at customs asked me my occupation. I'm a writer, I told him in my still working Spanish. By then, this sentence felt like a part of me. It had taken me years to first utter it and a few more to say it without flinching or hedging. That last year had been my first as a full-time freelancer, selling articles and coaching new writers with the online course that originated this book. I had 70,000 words of a novel written, and my life included occasional emails with news of publications or opportunities that made me squeal and shimmy through my apartment. I was a writer, no doubt about it. I come to you not just as a writer, but as an observer of the writing world, and someone who responds to confusion by straightening bottles on shelves and making spreadsheets. That is to say, I organize things, and here I've organized for you a welcome kit of everything that would have helped me most in my first years, if I'd only had it back then. If I could travel back in time to meet the person I was, trying to become a writer in the suburbs with a 9 to 5, student loan debt, and a side gig taking up my weekends, this book is what I would give her. I collected the contents from conversation I'd had at post-reading parties with writers who had written novels, memoirs, and poetry collections, my own experience from before and after publications, and years of studying the storytelling knowledge humans have accumulated over thousands of years. I'm lucky enough to have Hugo House, the place that gave me a scholarship to my first writing class when I was making $340 a week serving wine and jotting down story ideas on the back of my order pad. It felt so much harder to pursue writing when I didn't have any other writers in my life, when I didn't have any idea how many people and organizations wanted to assist me, and when it seemed as if everyone on book jackets got a master's in creative writing at an age younger than I was when I decided to start trying. Some people can get a writing life going on a bus in Paraguay. I needed help. I hope to pay forward the support I got from my writing community. As they did for me, I lay down this book for you as a welcome mat to the writing world. By the power vested in me, I say, come on in. Yay! Thank you, guys. Thank you guys so much. I invite you to hang around. My upstairs neighbor, Jonathan, is around. He's going to be playing some music for us. There he is. Hi, Jonathan. So I love this because I live in a tiny house, as you might have seen in my story about it in The Stranger, which had a picture of me in the bathroom on it. That was a little too much. It was fine. Just to know if you're going to Google it. There's something waiting for you. So most mornings, when I'm sitting down to do my morning pages, I hear Jonathan upstairs practicing his instruments. And it's just fun. It just reminds me why we live in this tiny place. So yeah, hang around. And everyone meets someone new. Meet someone you've never met before. Because every new person, like I used to think networking was like grabbing and like climbing. It's like combining forces. So like everyone you meet strengthens our writing community a little bit more. And so many people in this room had so much to do with this book. And like it's so crazy to see how the separation of like the first time I walked into Nicole's reading, which was also with Suzanne, and like now is just like years of hard work. And you're like, oh, okay, yeah. So know people, let people help you, let people know you, and thank you guys so much for coming.